doing something thoughtfully like this, with a framework, with an external body to reflect and work with, that it can be done, something can be done that is concrete, that takes you through a process where that changes the dynamics of the group, that evolves our practices, and even in just the awareness from other people that others in our colleagues in the field that we did such a thing as an equity audit, that there are things that people can do besides just write a really strong equity statement on their website, right? And I don't mean that as a criticism of anyone who does that. I think that's important too. But my experience is that a lot of people in our field struggle with concrete actions they can take internally to actually move along, to evolve their own thinking, their own practices, their own relationships, their activities, and the things that they create.
It's kind of on two ends of the spectrum. There were some things I really valued as an outcome of this. One of them was we did spend a lot of time reconsidering the history of CASE and the history of the informal science education field. And doing that from the lens of the equity audit, and particularly with the input from the committee that we were in conversation with, to me really was a deconstruction of a history that I felt like I had understood, but I was now kind of appreciating, particularly the extent to which racial equity had not been a very important part of the work or the conversation of a lot of people in the field in ISC. So that part of it, where you could kind of take this moment to rethink what you thought you know about your field, was invaluable to me.
But there's something to be learned for me beyond CASE that I think other organizations that do that will also benefit from, which is to deeply think through the structure, decision-making processes, even the emotions that people might experience, is very transferable in a sense of creating sensitivity towards the issues, clarity around the concepts, and generating ideas around how to, within an organization, fix the problems. Not just fix the problems as in on the surface and putting a Band-Aid on, but to think deeply through what the underlying root policies are that might lead to inequities, whether they're racial inequities or others. To me, that was a huge benefit. It enlightened our thinking around these concepts, and I think this is very transferable. It helped me in work that I did during the equity audit and afterwards in at least 3 other organizations that I'm affiliated with.
CASE, I think, is known for polish, right? Toolkits are polished, the website, the blog, right? They're beautifully designed, they are well executed, and I think that's really part of CASE's standard. And I think we were a bit vulnerable in being open about the fact that this process was emerging and evolving in real time, that we were trying new things, that in particular at the awardee meeting of PIs and community partners, but also in talking with the committee and in inviting members of the community to help facilitate sessions at the awardee meeting. I think we were very transparent about this being a work in progress, that we were learning in real time. And I think that that level of vulnerability and honesty is really important, right? That it wasn't fully baked and all the way done and figured out when we were talking about the work outside of the CASE team. And I'm curious about the extent to which that might encourage other organizations to not only take on something like an equity audit, but also to be unafraid of being transparent about things being a work in progress and learning opportunities, and will not be perfect, but that the efforts are intentional and authentic, and that our iteration and learning and reflection was also authentic.
Well, I mean, from my point of view, equity work will always be ongoing and kind of messy. And if it's not, then you should reassess what's happening. because it probably should really be that.
The other piece that I'm reminded of is that just a set of appreciation for the fact that we were willing to explore the space together, that frankly we're making up as we went along. Partly because there isn't a cookie cutter formula for doing an equity audit, but also because it's a resource center. There were questions about what this meant for a cooperative agreement. And just to echo Rabia, all of the work that was happening meant that there were sometimes shifts that we needed to make that at the time felt a little like compromises, right? We wanted to do some professional development work with the team and have an external facilitator and so forth. And it became clear that just the timing wasn't going to allow for that. So it felt like a part that we reluctantly had to let go of in favor of other things. That level of those things that I think I'm describing as compromises, I think are just part of the dynamic of what you're going to get into when you do this kind of work. And we as CASE, we're thinking about the field. And so there's an outward looking perspective. The analogy for, an informal sort of design space like a museum might be you're thinking about your public, but that the other side of the coin is the internal piece that you have to look at, right? So that you do need to think about your practices, your mindset, your outputs, and so forth. And that part of the value is also that it gives you a way to have a very systematic approach to understanding the work you're doing and your practice and how you may or may not be centering equity